going to go ahead and call this evening's City Council meeting on February 20th to order. Would like all of you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excuse me, Janet, would you show the council is here with the exception of Councilman Diaz, please? Moving on then to consent calendar.
Move approval.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the consent calendar. All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Moving on to the big reason most of you are here, recognitions and presentations.
Aye.
And the first is to our illustrious previous Chief of Police, Joseph Crines. Have a nice plaque we'd like to present you. Joe served us very, very well, filled in very quickly as our interim police chief from November of 2017 through just about a week ago. Well, actually, officially until tonight. So we want to give you a very nice plaque and thank you very much. You were a wonderful interim police chief for us. So we appreciate that.
Say it again.
Now say it again.
Say it again. once again.
He's new to this job.
To make it official. Yes. Yes. We appreciate your service to Clayton. You came in with a lot of experience and helped that transition, and also did some initial training for our new police chief. So we appreciate that as well. I want to present you with a nice plaque. Awesome. It's got this city replica and your badge replica as well.
Awesome.
And our sincere appreciation for your work.
Thank you.
All right?
All right.
You want to say anything here?
Sure, I'll say a couple of things.
Okay.
Turn that around. Turn the plaque around? Okay. No, I just want to say thank you so much. And again, thank the City of Clayton for the opportunity just to come in and fill the chair for a few months and to help transition for our next chief. I know that you guys have hired an outstanding police chief, and I know she's going to do a wonderful job for the city, and she's going to fit right in and already has immediately. So I enjoyed my time here. It's such a beautiful city, and I enjoy living right down the street, and you won't get me too far away because I've joined the business group, and I'll be around. And I do have one little thing to give, if I may, Mr. Mayor, and just take a moment. It is so wonderful working with such great folks in a city like Clayton and great professionals, and working with Mr. Napper, who is, I've been an interim chief 5 times now, and he is definitely in the top 5 for city managers for me, for those interim cities. But I did have one thing that I wanted to present to him, as much as it pains me, because we had such a great working relationship. But I have something here for the manager. If you turn it over. Yes. So
that's my batting average.
Unfortunately, it is Dodger blue, but that's for our manager there. Thank you.
Turn it around. You want to pull my batting average?
Oh, okay.
All right. There we go. Thanks again, Joe.
Thank you.
Chewy, did you see this?
I did. Yeah.
Thanks so much. And next up, now that Joe has officially accepted his plaque, it is official. He's stepping down, but we need someone to replace him. And we did an excellent job, we think, of researching who is out there in our jurisdiction, hopefully, familiar with Clayton and the Contra Costa area, that can immediately hit the floor running and take over our police department here in Clayton. So we had 2 committees, actually, that helped us with this selection. First committee was made up of a number of committee members from Clayton itself, community people who also reviewed all of the applicants, came up with their own list of recommendations, and then we had a community committee, really, of police chiefs, both active and retired, who certainly had the background to review the applicants and come up with a good recommendation. And luckily for us, they came up with the same recommendation, and that recommended person accepted the position. So we feel we got the best of both worlds with a very qualified applicant being selected and agreeing to take over our police department. So Elise Warren, I'd like you to come up, please. Elise is going to be our first female police chief here in Clayton, and she will be the only active female police chief in Contra Costa County, and one of, I believe, only 25 in the state of California. So we are very pleased that she has agreed to take over and serve as the police chief of the Clayton Police Department. So she does come to us with 28 years experience in the Sheriff's Department, so she already has a built-in network of people here in the Contra Costa County area that are going to be able to assist her, although she's ready and already jumped in to take over our department. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. Part of the official duty is actually the pinning of the badge. And for that particular honor, what's that?
Why don't we give her the oath of office first?
Well, I guess before we pin the badge, yes. This is my first police chief as well. So I'm going to ask the city clerk, Janet Brown, to come up and give the oath.
2 words, that's it.
Yes.
Thank you. Can you please raise your right hand and repeat after me? I state your name.
I, Elise Warren,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance to
and allegiance to
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well
and that I will well
and faithfully discharge
and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
Very good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow, we got through all that. Thank you very much. Okay, as I was starting to say, one of the official acts is the pinning of the badge. And for that, we actually would like Elise's daughter, Jessica, to come up and perform that duty for us. Let me get a picture of that. Absolutely. Thank you, Jessica.
Yeah.
Proud to have her. And Chief, your first official words here to the audience.
Okay, thank you, council members, and thank you, city manager, and everybody that I've worked with. This has been a wonderful first week. I have never felt so welcome. This city is wonderful and very supportive, and a very capable police department that I really look forward to leading. I think we're going to do great things in the future, and I'm just really happy to be here.
Excellent. Thank you. Now we thought it would be nice to both thank the chief for leaving and thank the chief for coming. So a dual recognition event. So we'd like to honor them with a nice cake and ask all of you to join in and have a piece of cake. And we're going to break for about 10 to 15 minutes to enjoy the fruits of the transition here of our police department. So thank you. We can take the break now.
All right.
We're
Okay.
good.
Call the meeting back to order. Move on to Section 5, reports. Planning Commission, no meeting was held. Trails and Landscape Committee, we have our council representative, Councilman Shuey.
All right.
Vice Mayor Shuey,
Yeah,
excuse me.
I got roped into doing it since I was there. But since there's only 3 on the committee now, they were nobody had the time. But it was a good meeting. There was a lot of discussion about what may or may not be a big issue with the city, but certainly with several dog owners. There was a discussion about weed spraying and schedules and everything. And Laura and Mark did a good job of explaining that you can't have a schedule posted. They talked about, hey, can we put a schedule where they spray the trails and the people with dogs don't have to go on the day they did it, but if people are sick or weather or anything happens, so they talked about putting, the teal green in it to make sure that you can see when it's recently sprayed. But the TLC is hopefully, I think they were kind of tasked with writing a piece for the paper to kind of update that and work with the dog owners on that. But they also mentioned that maybe we could get a blurb in the mayor's column, which I'll leave to your discretion in terms of that. But it kind of delved into the fact that sometimes we as a city don't get notice of certain things that are down. We talked last time about the tree that was down on the trail, but as part of the mayor's column, maybe reminding people that they need to notify the city. Don't assume that we know that it's down or a problem. And so they had a good discussion there. They went back and forth again, kind of, what their role was with the committee. But overall, it was a good meeting, and they're looking forward to getting new members. And Tuya and I are going to be interviewing them hopefully Thursday or Friday, and they should be, on board for the next meeting, and we'll go from there.
Good. Okay. Thank you for the report. And excuse me, but Brandon, I want to make sure, did you have a chance to make a presentation?
I presented a certificate. I have a letter for the record at this point.
Okay.
But nonetheless, I can...
The microphone.
Why don't you come up to the microphone? Yeah, sorry, I just thought you were going to go ahead and make that presentation.
Oh, no, yeah, not a problem. Nonetheless, so I'm sure we'll get to Chief Warren. So this is just a letter on behalf of the Congressman Mark Desaulniers in order to recognize Chief Warren. So now it's put in the air quotes there. It is my pleasure to write this letter of congratulations to you, Chief Warren, on being confirmed as the City of Clayton's new Chief of Police. I know your extensive experience with the Contra Costa Sheriff's Department and your strong beliefs in community partnerships are important assets to the City of Clayton, Clayton Police Force, and the people you serve and protect. I'm honored to join with you, your family, friends, and colleagues in offering you my congratulations, and I'm confident you will serve the citizens of Clayton to the very best of your abilities. If you should need anything in the future, please do not hesitate to call on me. That's signed sincerely, Mark Desaulniers, Member of Congress, California District 11.
Thank you. Thank you. Just realized you probably want to make that public announcement. So thank you. Thank you. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Finishing up now with committee reports. Tuya?
So my only report, I attended the February 14 budget subcommittee meeting with the mayor. We talked about the mid-year budget, which is also on the agenda today. That's
Okay.
it.
Councilperson Diaz, Diaz is not here this evening, so we'll move right on to Councilperson Pierce.
Thank you. In the last 2 weeks since our last meeting, I attended a regional planning committee, which is a advisory committee to the Association of Bay Area Governments, talking a lot about housing and how we prepare to be resilient in the face of earthquakes and other kinds of natural disasters, particularly things like the fires in the northern part of our region. I will be, as an aside, taking a tour of that with the ABAG folks, with our resilience team. It will be led by the current president of ABAG, the Sonoma County Supervisor David Rabbit, and their staff from Sonoma County, and it will be very instructive to learn what they are doing to cope with the devastation and how they intend to try to get the housing replaced that was lost in this economy, and what they're going to do planning-wise and all that kind of thing. It should be very interesting. Also had a meeting of TransPAC, which is our Central County Transportation Advisory Committee. I had 6 meetings of the Metropolitan Transportation Committee, and the Historic Society hosted our annual Camellia Tea, which honors our old-timers and our history of Clayton. Also had a meeting of the Bay Area Regional Collaborative, about the resilience teams and the sea level rise report that we've been working on for the last several years, finalized that report and received some information about solar ordinances and other model ordinances for resilience and other things like that. I also, in that capacity, talked to our ABAG staff about potentially redoing the flash drive that they gave us all at a General Assembly several years ago that contains all of the model ordinances you need to have in place to be ready to accept FEMA money should you need it. Because if you don't have your ordinances in place before the disaster strikes, you will not qualify to get FEMA money. And there were a few of the folks up in the North Bay that have had to struggle with some of those things, and some of the other regions that have been hit by some of these disasters this last year. So it would be good to just refresh all of our memories on what is needed to be done with that. So that would be my report for the last 2 weeks.
Thank you very much. I wasn't quite as busy as you in attending all those meetings, but on the 7th I did attend the CCCTA County Connection Administration and Finance Committee meeting. Was assigned to that subcommittee with the new assignment to the County Connection directors, board of directors. And the primary focus of that meeting was a status of a variety of legal activities, suits against the district. That annually they have a report on the status of those ongoing issues. And then also attended the Clayton Historical Society Community, as Julie mentioned. And they do have a new exhibit with many historical photos and artifacts that I encourage people to go and visit. Our local museum on Main Street always has very interesting exhibits, and this one in particular with the historical photos is interesting. Then also attended the Council Budget Subcommittee meeting, as Councilperson Catalano indicated. And then on the 15th, attended the CCC County Connection Board of Directors meeting and recognized employees of the district for outstanding service in the fourth quarter, and also got an update on legislative plans and the work on the California Air Resources Board. And of particular interest is the concern that the County Connection District has on potential regulation that would require that their entire fleet be all electric by 2040. And they went through a description of what buses would look like if they were expected to maintain the current routes and the size of the batteries and the weight of the buses to continue the current routes. And it would be quite a challenge. So they're trying to influence how that legislation is being written, but a very interesting discussion on that. So that was those meetings that I had attended since our last council meeting. And next up, I actually passed over the city manager report. Gary?
Thank you, Mayor. I had 19 items, but in the interest of moving along, I'll just go no report at this time.
Just anxious to get into the city council reports.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right. Okay, moving on then to public comment, and these are public comment on non-agenda items. And so these are items that are not on the agenda. Those that are on the agenda, public hearings and action items, the public will have an opportunity to be heard. But for the non-agenda items, I do have a speaker card for Ann Stanaway. Ms. Stanaway, if you'd like to come forward. Again, identify yourself and address.
Ann Stanaway from 1553 Haviland Place in Clayton, California. And it's no secret, crime in incorporated Clayton is on the rise. Beatings, robberies. Clayton is fast gaining the reputation as a haven for the criminal classes. Now, especially after dark, Clayton's law-abiding citizens eschew ventures within the city environs. Business locates here at its own peril. So commonplace are burglaries. Formerly welcoming green spaces are described by Clayton's own police force as dark and dangerous places. Denizens of Clayton rightfully expect protection from crime waves, but first responders are hamstrung by Clayton's system of patronage. Despite years of pleas for equal enforcement of fire lane, zoning, and public safety ordinances, city enforcement quails at the prospect of alienating influential violators. Instead, Clayton's first responders battle congested fire lanes, losing precious minutes of critical response time. Make no mistake. Attempts by the city elites to whitewash Clayton's system of patronage will kill this once bucolic community. Criminals have found Clayton's city council asleep at the wheel. While our first responders are forced to slog through cluttered byways on impossible calls, criminals have free rein to prey upon Clayton's long-suffering taxpayers. Ladies and gentlemen of the City Council, fountains are no substitute for public safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the council? Next item then would be item 7, public hearings. We have a review of the city's mid-year budget status report for fiscal year 2017-2018 and recommendations of mid-year adjustments. The presentation from the finance manager, Kevin Mazzuto, please.
Thank you, Mayor Hayden. So the purpose of today's presentation is to provide a highlight of how the year is faring financially compared to the forecasts we included in the adopted budget for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2018. So the current year budget, fiscal year 17-18, was adopted on June 20th, 2017, and that adopted budget included a budgetary excess of $10,830. Staff has, the city manager, Mr. Gary Napper, and myself met with the City Council Budget Subcommittee on Wednesday, February 14th, last week, and the results of that meeting from some in-depth analysis was that the committee did support the analysis and the recommendation included in the staff report. And then overall, in that meeting, we met for approximately 2 hours and covered the staff report as well as the budgetary variances in depth. So I'll be keeping this one a little bit more higher level, but I'd be happy to respond to any questions that the members of the City Council have after the presentation. So moving on to slide number 3, which covers kind of a snapshot of where general fund operational expenditures and revenues are to date. As the members of the City Council and the public can see, expenditures are currently outpacing revenues by a pace of 55.13%. compared to 53.09% on the revenue side. None of those items are alarming at all, and actually when you do an analysis of the line items, everything seems to be on target with our budget projections, with 2 exceptions in the expenditure side, which we'll be covering in a later slide. And largely, expenditures are higher than they normally would be at the mid-year point, because some of the items that some of the obligations that we have as a city are nonlinear in nature, such as our insurance premiums, as well as this year the city had decided to prepay the CalPERS unfunded actuarial liability up front in July, which actually resulted in some savings to the budget, which we didn't anticipate, as opposed to paying on a monthly basis, where CalPERS loves to charge you a little bit of a premium for that, unfortunately. Moving on, this slide provides a 3-year summary of general fund revenues at the mid-year point, which we discussed are a little over 53% of the budget. And overall, those are in line and on target with our budget projections. Most notably, we have approximately 4 line item positive revenue variances, and those are really resulting from 2 areas, one of which is an increase in, a higher than projected increase in assessed values of our secured properties in the City of Clayton region. We adopted the budget with a conservative estimate of 2% in growth, and in actuality, the assessor published a letter in June after the budget was adopted that actually supported a growth of 4.05%. So that actually did fare well to the city, and our philosophy typically when putting together the budget is it's better to go slightly more conservative than to overestimate revenues, especially revenues. And the other area where we experienced a favorable variance was in sales and use taxes. And largely that positive variance arose because we're now in a post-triple flip area, and there's some uncertainty involved with that, so we did go a little bit conservative. Previously, which is outlined more in depth in the adopted budget narrative, the state took basically a quarter of our local 1% Bradley Burns tax, and they unwound that towards the end of last fiscal year, and we needed to figure out what the impact would be now that we're going to be getting our full 1%. And a result of that was because of timing, we had a little bit of a bump to start the fiscal year. So because of that, we did a full annual analysis, and it looks like sales and use taxes are going to be coming in at approximately $14,500 higher than we projected. Overall, the four items on the secured property tax, the three other revenue positive variances on the property tax side are RPTTF, which is the Redevelopment Property Tax Trust Fund, the secured local property taxes, and then the in lieu of VLF property taxes, which is the vehicle license fees. And the result of those three items, which are connected to our secured property tax, was actually a positive variance of about $49,000. And we'll get into the notable variances a little bit more in depth on slide number 6 coming up. This slide provides, on the other end of the spectrum, a 3-year summary of general fund expenditures. Just like the revenues, it is in line with our projections. However, there are two exceptions I wanted to point out. So at the mid-year point, we discussed expenditures are at about slightly higher than 55% of the adopted budget. And really that's because of the nonlinear items and as well as two negative variances that we identified in the budget analysis. So the first item is in the Clayton Community Park irrigation line item. That's in Department 09 of the general fund. And we are observing that due to the post-drought era that we're in and the state's lifting of water irrigation restrictions, we're noting that we are going to be requesting in the staff report an appropriation increase for the Clayton Community Park water line item of $22,000, which would ultimately bring the budgeted line item of $90,000 to a revised total of $100,000. And no, I don't have those notes directly in front of me. But ultimately, that line item was a budgeted proposed increase of $22,000. The other item was for our new professional engineering services contract, which was unknown at the time of the budget preparation and adoption. And because we do have a new retainer with a new larger professional services engineering firm, that was not incorporated in the adopted budget, and we are requesting an amendment to that line item of $34,735. So the summary of the proposed changes to the fiscal year 17-18 budget are included on this slide. The top is 4 proposed changes to 4 revenue line items, which we had discussed previously. And the bottom part is for the new city engineer retainer contract in the community park irrigation. The good news about these is that the positive variances on the revenue side offset the negative variances on the appropriations end. So ultimately, if the city council does go with the staff recommendation to adopt these proposed adjustments, the city council will still have a balanced budget with an operating excess or surplus. Moving on to some of the other significant restricted use funds. Overall, the results are positive and no action is being recommended on the revenue side of any of those. Some of the significant funds included in the other restricted funds are the gas tax fund, which is our depository for HUDA gas tax monies, the landscape maintenance district for the CFD 2007-1, as well as the Downtown Grove Park Fund. So some of the significant items to talk about here on the revenue side for these funds is that gas tax, you can see, is well below the 50% mark where we normally would be, but that's explainable in the current fiscal year because the new RMRA monies, which is the Road Maintenance and Rehabilitation Act, gas tax monies were not received until January, so we just received our first installment of that, as well as the state's repayment of HUDA gas tax loans, so those weren't reflected in the first 6 months of the fiscal year, therefore explaining the 41.4% on the revenue end. Then taking a look at the Measure J Special Revenue Fund and our Stormwater Assessment District Fund, those are well below even the 33.1% mark, which is because we don't receive those revenues until well after the mid-year point. And Measure J, we don't expect to receive those revenues from CCTA until approximately October of 2018. However, the information we have received from the county so far does indicate that those revenues should be on target with what we projected at this point. And then moving on to the CIP fund, which is the city's capital improvement program, that operates really on a reimbursement basis for the most part, receiving revenues from other funds as well as grants, if we're lucky enough to get any regional, state, or federal grants. So the 17.7% in the revenues there is a direct reflection of where we stand on the expenditure side, which is included on this slide right here. So in looking at those, shifting back to the gas tax and Measure J funds, those expenditures are well below our budgeted projections right now because those funds ultimately act as a reimbursement factor for the CIP fund, which is where the city generally accounts for all the capital projects. And as Scott could attest, if the City Council has any other in-depth questions about those projects, we have approximately 9 active CIP projects going on right now, which is pretty phenomenal. But right now, those are all in kind of the planning and design phase. So talking to Scott, our city engineer, we do expect those projects to kick up in the next 6 months through June 30th of 2018. And some of the projects that we expect to transition into the shovels in the ground construction phase are the El Molino Sewer Project, the Keller Ridge Collector Street Project, the El Portal Restoration Project, the 2018 Neighborhood Streets Project, as well as the Pine Hollow Restoration Project, just to name a few. So, and I should say in the time that I've been here, that is actually a lot of projects going on for one fiscal year for a city of our size, which is pretty exciting. So it's good to see a lot going on. But that ultimately concludes the mid-year budgetary analysis. And at this point, I'd like to pass the agenda item back to the City Council for discussion and action.
Any questions of staff at this time? I'll open it up then for public comment.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. This item was placed as a public hearing, so you opened up for public hearing?
Public hearing? Yes.
Yes. That's what we heard.
Yes.
Thank you.
Seeing no one coming forward, we'll close down the public hearing and bring it back to the council for discussion. Any comments? Concerns? Motion? Excuse me?
Yes, I would just like to thank staff for their diligence and doing such a good job. It's all good news when we get more money than we expect, but it's also good when it matches up with unexpected or additional expenses. And so the good news is we still have a really healthy reserve, which is always good. We are so far ahead of some of our colleagues in other cities. I hear about this frequently at other meetings and people bemoaning their situation and their reserves dwindling down to 10% of their annual budget or less. And while for a great big city that may still be more than we have, they certainly can't operate a year after a disaster if something like that happens. And I seem to be focusing a lot on resilience and preparedness these days, but there's a lot of that need going on. So if we were struck with some kind of horrible disaster, we could at least keep operating for a year if we needed to, and longer. So I think that's really good, and I want to commend our leadership with Gary and Kevin with his fine management skills to making sure that we stay on target for council policy. And with that, I would move the adoption of the resolution amending the annual operating budget of the City of Clayton for the 2017-18 fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2017.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I would like to insert a comment, though, before we actually vote on this. Tuya and I did attend the subcommittee meeting, and Kevin went into much more detail, and Gary as well, providing an excellent description of how we arrived at the current mid-year point, and where some items did go up, as Kevin indicated, some items did come down, and the overall result was that we came out still with a excess of operating funds available, which, as Julie indicated, certainly much, much better than being in the hole. But it does reinforce that proper planning did go into preparation of the initial budget and monitoring the expenses and revenue that were generated for this mid-year report. So thank you very much for your efforts. It's always good to have a nice, thorough explanation that results in a positive report. So we appreciate that. And with that, we have had a motion and a second to approve the mid-year budget as proposed. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? No. Moving on then to action items. We'll move to item 8A, discussion of policy directions regarding the city's existing and proposed no smoking regulations in public places, comprehensively address smoking and consumption of cannabis and vaping. We'll go for a presentation. Community Development Director Mindy Gentry.
Thank you and good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. During the city's process of addressing Proposition 64, which was the legalization of adult use cannabis, the city council provided direction to come back with a revision to the city's smoking regulations in order to more thoroughly address the smoking and ingesting of cannabis. Current state law does contain limitations on the public consumption of cannabis. However, some language is also vague, such as the smoking of cannabis is prohibited in a location where smoking tobacco is also prohibited. Due to the ambiguity, this prompted staff to examine the city's current smoking ordinance to determine if this necessitated more wholesale changes. The city's smoking ordinance was last updated in 1993, and since that time there have been significant changes to state law regarding tobacco use, significant changes to how tobacco is consumed, as well as societal shifts and acceptable behavior related to the use of tobacco products, particularly with health concerns around secondhand smoke. State law prohibits the smoking of tobacco, including electronic smoking devices, in many locations and circumstances. However, over the last 10 years, local jurisdictions have been enacting more stringent laws to address complaints and health concerns received from their communities. Since the city's smoking ordinance has not been updated since 1993, staff is seeking policy direction on a variety of topics in order to appropriately revise our local ordinance. So the first policy question for consideration is, should the city further regulate tobacco and cannabis products that do not create vapor or smoke? This would include products such as chewing tobacco, snuff, or edibles. Since these products do not produce an involuntary impact like secondhand smoke or vapor, and state law currently prohibits the ingestion of cannabis in a public place, staff is recommending no further regulation for these particular product types. Policy question number 2, should the city further regulate smoking at places of employment? State law prohibits smoking in most indoor workplaces, but has 7 exemptions, such as 20% of guest room accommodations in a hotel or motel, retail or wholesale tobacco shops, theatrical production sites, patient smoking areas and long-term health care facilities, amongst others. Staff is recommending a prohibition on smoking of all the places exempted by the state, except for retail or wholesale tobacco establishments with a private smoker's lounge. However, staff does recommend placing locational and operational regulations on these uses, such as not allowing minors to enter the store, to not allow the sale of food and drink, and the store must be a standalone building. The third question is, should the city regulate smoking in multifamily residential uses? Due to smoke migrating from neighboring apartments and condominiums through cracks in shared walls, vents, and open windows, and involuntarily subjecting others to secondhand smoke, jurisdictions have routinely adopted ordinances to prohibit the smoking in not only the common areas of all multifamily residences, but also all units within multifamily residences. As of April 2017, the American Lung Association has documented 51 jurisdictions having adopted strong smoking ordinances for smoke-free housing, with the majority of those 51 jurisdictions requiring 100% of the units to be smoke-free. Staff recommends the prohibition of smoking in the enclosed and unenclosed common areas of multifamily residences and within the units of all multifamily residences, including balconies and patios. Staff also recommends a threshold of 2 or more units, including condominiums, be established due to the sharing of common walls and the impacts of secondhand smoke. However, staff proposes allowing landlords to designate an outdoor smoking area a reasonable distance away from any doors or operable windows. Staff also recommends these restrictions be effective immediately for any new multifamily development projects and provide a 1-year time frame for these regulations to be phased in for existing multifamily residential units. Policy question number 4, should the city regulate smoking in unenclosed spaces? The first one for this particular policy question is, currently smoking is prohibited in city parks, trails, and in open space. However, state law does not allow smoking within 25 feet of a playground either, but this does not apply to public sidewalks. The City Council may want to consider restricting smoking in the town center by establishing a 25-foot buffer around the Grove Park, because it's conceivable somebody could be smoking within 25 feet of a playground on the sidewalk, or it could be an issue at the concerts in the Grove as well, where secondhand smoke could conceivably drift from the sidewalk into the park. Secondly, other places for consideration would be the prohibition of smoking at all outdoor public events, such as the 4th of July Parade, the Art and Wine Festival, Oktoberfest, as well as recreational areas. Thirdly, unenclosed dining areas. And lastly, should a reasonable smoking distance be established from any doorway, window, vent, crack, etc. Staff is recommending on the first one, due to the state law exempting public sidewalks in regards to playgrounds, a 25-foot buffer should be established around the Grove. Secondly, to prohibit smoking at all outdoor public events and recreational areas, except for private recreational areas not open to the public, including golf courses. Thirdly, prohibit smoking in unenclosed dining areas except for private restaurants not open to the public. And lastly, establish a 25-foot buffer zone from any doorway, window, opening, crack, or vent into an enclosed area where smoking is prohibited. Policy question number 5 is, what level of penalty should be applied for violations? The City Council does have the authority within the ordinance to determine the level of penalty for violations of the proposed regulations. The penalty could be considered an infraction or a misdemeanor, or it could be drafted as a wobbler, with the level of penalty at the discretion of the enforcing officer. Staff is recommending the penalty be a wobbler, thereby allowing situational discretion, as well as allowing for private citizens to obtain an injunction against individuals or businesses for repeat violations at no cost or expense to the city. And then particularly with cannabis, state law does not allow for the smoking or ingesting of cannabis or cannabis products in a public place, but fails to define what public place means. Therefore, staff is recommending until further guidance is provided from the state, it'd be prudent to include the applicable definition of a public place in the Clayton Municipal Code. Further, staff is also recommending a reiteration of state law as it pertains to the consumption of cannabis and to further specify it is not allowed on any city property. And lastly, some of the issues that were considered by staff but did not end up being incorporated in the recommendations were 3 different categories mainly. One, staff did consider a prohibition of smoking within the Clayton Town Center, similar to the prohibition that is in place in downtown Walnut Creek. However, this was not ultimately recommended due to possible economic impacts on businesses in the area as well as due to its restrictive nature. The second topic was applying the prohibition of smoking to only the common areas of multifamily residences. However, after considering that smoking is not a constitutional right and the health risks associated with secondhand smoke, staff felt it was more appropriate to prohibit smoking in all multifamily residential units and adjacent outdoor spaces. Lastly, city staff considered recommending allowing the city to file a civil action for any violation, seeking a monetary fine, injunctive relief, or nuisance abatement. However, given the costs associated with filing a civil action, staff did believe this wasn't a prudent course of action to make this recommendation. And that concludes my staff report. I'll be happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Do you have questions of staff? Dave?
The injunction that private individuals can get, that would be having to go through the court system to do that?
Correct.
Which, as you just indicated, is prohibitive.
Yes.
And you indicated cannabis, I think you said cannabis not allowed in a public place. Is that just the smoked cannabis? I mean, because people have edibles that, you know.
It includes ingesting cannabis, either smoking or edibles, in a public place.
Okay, why would we be, and I'm just devil's advocate here, why would we not allow that, but we allow liquor? I mean, the ingestible cannabis is, I don't know, I'm not sure why that would be banned as well.
It would be banned from, because you're not allowed to consume alcohol in a public place.
We do it every other weekend at the Grove.
But that's by special alcohol use permit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that would also allow them to have edible cannabis then?
We don't have an edible cannabis use permit right now.
Yeah, only if they had a permit for it.
Well, okay, so we allow the liquor in the park on the concerts in the park by special permit. And normally, though, that we don't have, and this just covers all that. All right.
Nor would state law allow that to occur.
Okay. All right. Those are the questions I had.
Okay. Do you?
I have 2 questions too. So on the multi-family residences, so we don't have a whole lot of those types of housing units where we have multiple units. But I'm thinking of Oakhurst and some of the residences in Indian Wells, they do share, I mean, a lot of those are duplexes and they share a wall. Would those be covered so that nobody could smoke inside their own unit?
Correct.
Okay.
Because of the sharing of the wall.
Because they share a wall, right? Okay. Then my other question is on the Grove. And so we have a current ordinances in place that prohibit smoking in city parks. So is Grove not considered a city park, or why are we just talking about creating a buffer for it, additional 25 feet?
Correct, because right now, conceivably, somebody could smoke on the sidewalk adjacent to the park.
And they do.
Yeah.
But it does, in terms of other city parks, though, you could smoke within 1 foot of those parks, right? So we're talking only about adding the buffer on the Grove, but not on other parks necessarily.
Correct.
The distinction
If I could, Councilmember, I think some of the distinction is the Grove. The tot lots are closer in the Grove to a public sidewalk, whereas in the other parks, just thinking of, I think they're further removed from the public lots and the public sidewalk.
Okay. That's it.
Julie?
Yeah, I had several questions and a couple of comments. Under policy question 3 about the multifamily residential uses, What would the process be for notifying the current tenants and landlords and all of that? How would they be notified? Who would do that? I mean, are we just going to post that this is our new rule and expect everyone to go along with it? Or are we going to have a sample phrase for leasing agreements? It doesn't apply to, I mean, you know, a lease is one thing, but most folks in our town actually own their unit. So how is that going to be enforced or applied or notified or?
I would, imagine that, to some of our larger facilities, we would actually do a mail out to notify them, such as Diamond Terrace, well,
they're non-smoking already.
Right. But other considerations, would be, to post it in the newspaper typically like we do for legal requirements. And then at that point it would be as a, reactionary type if the city received a complaint.
So then it's up to a citizen to file on their own a civil complaint, not because would we enforce it or not?
The city police department would enforce it if there's a report of a violation occurring.
Okay. I'm just envisioning how that works. I'm not opposed to it because actually when I was living in the house I lived in before, my next door neighbor was a smoker, and 11 o'clock every night it would come right in my window, winter or summer, windows open or closed, because that's where the vent was for the furnace. So,
if I might, Councilmember, I think we haven't fully moved to the implementation phase of the ordinance, but we would certainly, staff would reach out to some of the other communities that have gone through this, so as not to reinvent the wheel. Maybe they've discovered something. I don't know that individual residences, but if there's an HOA or whatnot that had, units that had shared walls, we could certainly inform the HOAs. We could also do that if people are renting, landlords like property managers and they have a business license, we could, include that as with a copy of the business license application.
okay, those are some good ideas. I hadn't thought of that particular aspect of it yet, but yeah. And we do have a lot of units that this would apply to.
Yes.
We have the condos up on the top up in Oakhurst, as well as the cottages and some of those others that are
Mark Creek Park Villas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are quite a few areas. Now, when we get to the buffer around the park, I don't disagree with it. In fact, the reason that we put together, we were one of the first in the county, in fact, to put together a no smoking ordinance in our parks. We were on the A list at that time, not on the D list. We were actually commended as an example for many other jurisdictions. And we did that when we opened the Clayton Community Park. That was the reason we did it. And we wanted to make sure people weren't smoking up on the bleachers and up there near the grassland and all of that. I mean, there was fire danger, but it was also a public health issue. So we were leading the pack then. What I want to know now, because David's right, right now during concerts in particular, but even on weekends when there are folks down at the park, a lot of people ignore the fact that there's no smoking allowed in the park then. But during the concerts, they tend to congregate on the sidewalks on either side. Some of them go across the street to in front of the post office and sit on the stairs over there. It seems to me this means that they will have to at least cross the street, which gets them close to another establishment. Or, and here's the exception I want to ask about, would this just mean that they would move to a private parking lot, like the Village Market, where they wouldn't be regulated?
It would still apply within 25 feet of the park.
Whether it's public or private?
Correct.
Okay. Well, that solves one of the issues then. I'm just trying to figure out how they're going to find any place to go short of going over to the corral or something like that.
So we need to corral them.
Yeah, we may have to put some seating over in the corral for the concert.
Got a place ready for them.
Those restrooms will get more use
I
then.
know, that's
Well, it might, yeah. Okay, so that's one question. And then on that same issue, on item 4, under that policy question 4, you talk about the reasonable smoking distance from any doorway, window, opening, crack, or vent into an enclosed area in which smoking is prohibited. Are you intending that for just the downtown or citywide?
That would be citywide.
Because I think the problem with that in downtown is that means you're making de facto a no smoking downtown. I think you would have a very hard time, for instance, getting 25 feet away from any of our restaurants without putting them either in the middle of the street or in front of somebody else's business, or pretty darn close to it. And I think that might be one step too far. I don't know. I'm just trying to visualize all the different scenarios. Because we have a relatively narrow Main Street, and none of our buildings are particularly far away from each other. So if you've got to stay away from 25 feet away from any opening, crack, doorway, window, I think pretty soon you're at a point where there's no smoking downtown. And I just want to know that if that's what we intend to do, that we're
Let's send
intentional.
him to the church and he can run a sermon on a loop. And if they're going to smoke, they got to
On the no smoking. Well, I'm not wholly opposed to it, but I just want to make sure we're intentional in understanding the impact that that could have downtown.
And like it or not, there's a lot of people that go to Ed's and smoke. There's a lot of people that go to, Moressi's, that go to La Veranda that
There are a
smoke.
lot of people that go out on the porch at the museum thinking that's where they can sit and have their cigarette too, and this would say no, they can't do that. They would have to go across the street somewhere, and then they're in front of the park, or they're in front of Scipolini's, or they're at the bocce courts, or they're out in the middle of the street to avoid it. And I just want to be intentional about what we're doing.
What if...
Well, I think if I could, that's why we wanted to bring these to you in terms of a policies checklist. So then when we go to write the ordinance for you to consider, these things have already been somewhat addressed and you're comfortable at least either entertaining more public input on those or saying, no, we don't want to go that far. We're here to, I think work it through together is what we're trying to do.
Well, that's why I wanted to raise the issue, because, if it's citywide, that could be problematic. In residential areas, I'm all in favor of it personally, because I think most places you can find a place to get away from the next door neighbor. But
What if we allowed each restaurant to have a designated area? I mean,
they can if they have a separate bar, but that's being challenged
I'm just thinking
by
okay,
state.
so at Mudville, they walk out the back near the barber shop at night and they go over there. And frankly, I don't hear anybody whining about that or saying, oh, I hate that. And I'm really sensitive to
I am
smoke.
too. That's why I'm wondering.
And I can smell it when we go to the concerts in the Grove, when they are right next to where I sit and do that. I've never really noticed it at Mudville. At Moressi's, you almost think like Ed could put a couple of seats at the back of his private parking lot there where they could be, and it's not maybe 25 feet, but can we do an exemption like for each area?
Well, see, that's the issue. It may be 25 feet from Ed's, but it's not 25 feet from the museum, because there's no place when there's only 25 feet between them that you can get far enough away.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Maybe we have to make exemptions or little zones in there that in general, we're going to say 25 feet. But for as these specific eating establishments, we will designate zones that may not fall within the 25 feet, but will be as best as we can do.
I don't know.
Can we do that? Would that be kosher to do?
You're going to create a smoking zone in downtown, right?
It's a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, I mean, because, again, I know that people at Moressi's will walk kind of out the door and go toward that back of the parking lot anyway. And again, I've never really had
What do they do at bocce?
I don't know.
Smoke is not allowed on the court.
But
they go.
They're supposed to go out on the street.
On the street, and they will do
On a sidewalk, right next to it.
Right.
That's where they go
And
now.
Yeah, they'll either go next to the.
Is that considered a playground?
The bocce courts, a recreational area, open to the
But I
public.
haven't really
I was gonna
noticed
ask
a
about
problem there either.
that, too.
I mean, personally, again.
But
See,
that's
I'm
because
a
the
little-
property owner has a restriction.
Well, see, that's where I'm
But they're
wondering
still on the
if downtown we really need to do that. I don't know. I honestly don't know the answer to this one, but I think we
Yeah, I
have to
mean,
ask.
I think you may be right. We may be putting a percentage of our population that, yes, it's a nasty habit, but
Well,
we're not going to
it
change
may be
them.
shooing them away from our downtown
Yeah.
altogether.
And that's what we wouldn't want to
We
do.
don't want it. I mean,
Or
you
we're
know,
pushing the
Well-
segment from one business to another. We're just saying, well, not in Mauritius, we'll put them in the,
But they probably would
somebody else.
be in violation there as well. That's
Yeah.
the problem,
Yeah.
yeah. Because all the businesses are closely located.
If I might, just a comment. I think the whole, policy question of secondhand smoke is pretty well defined. And I actually think, even though I don't smoke, I think those who do smoke are genuinely, accommodating and don't want to be, to offend others by the secondhand smoke. And so I think really what they're looking for is, okay, fine, just tell me where I can. I mean, that's kind of what we've moved as a society. So I can see complications with number 4, though, as you're talking about it. And I know from City Hall, the front doors of City Hall, it's only 20 feet. We could get into the game of, well, let's make it 10 or whatnot. But maybe, that gets kind of ridiculous. You get rulers and whatnot. And this is going to be not proactively enforced. It's going to be reactionary enforcement. But maybe you do away with number 4. And if it seems to be a problem, well, you can
Then we
always
can
come back
revisit.
and visit.
I think so, because I think we've covered it in the multifamily stuff already for those areas that are really close. I just think we may be,
Yeah, I don't think Ed or anybody's going to be really happy if we push
well,
people out.
and I think even folks in some of our single-family neighborhoods might be pretty irritated too. So I don't know.
So do you have any other questions of staff before we get into discussion?
No, those were the only issues.
My question, the other questions have already been dealt with. I still have one, though, in the second policy question, and that's, should the city further regulate smoking at places of employment? I had to read that a couple of times when I get down to number 6, the private residences. And this restriction would only apply to private residences that are being used as an indoor workplace? Is that
Correct.
correct?
Mm-hmm.
How would you define an indoor workplace?
If it was a private residence that had a home occupation permit to operate as such, is how we would classify that.
So they couldn't smoke inside the residence?
If they had employees that would constituted as their business. Because if it was their private residence and they happened to run a home occupation business out of that, and it was just them and no employees, and they could still smoke in their residence. But if it's used and they have employees under that, then it would be
interpreted that it would allow that, a sole
yes.
sole proprietor?
Yes, a sole proprietor.
Okay. This is just workplaces that have employees?
Correct.
Okay. All right, any other questions of staff? Then I'll open it up to the public. Seeing no one, I'll bring it back up then to discussion by the council. Dave?
I'm pretty much in favor of the recommendations of staff, with the exception of the issue that Julie raised, and we just discussed about the 25. I think we probably should take that out. And
What about your issue about the private citizen being forced to bring in an injunction?
oh, that was just a question. I mean, that's the reality of it. Is
Yep.
that's something they'll have to do. My guess is they would repeatedly just call the cops, and at that point, if it's a
It would
wobbler,
become a harassment thing.
It would become something. So I'm fine with that. I was just curious whether whether we were going to set up some special thing, but the reality is you got to get along, and so I'm fine with that. So I like that, but I also do think that we ought to put this on, if we go ahead and do this, that we ought to put this on a 6, 9, or 12-month review to kind of come back and get I would love to find out whether there was ever any infractions or misdemeanors given, or whether we've gotten any blowback. It may be innocuous, or it may, be something that we need to tweak, and we can then look at that 25 feet or the openings. But I do like what staff has put together, and I think it's very well done. I appreciate that. So with that 25-foot thing, everything else seemed good to me.
One other thought, and I know you can't really put this into an ordinance, but when we introduce this to the public, it seems to me that we need to encourage people to be neighborly and talk to each other about their concerns. I mean, I found when I went to my neighbor and casually brought up, hey, I thought you'd quit smoking. Noticed you're smoking every night at 11 o'clock. Oh, how'd you know that? Well, it comes right through the vent. Oh, and you moved to the other side of the house where the wind was going the other way. Solved the problem. It was simple. Didn't have to go so far as to make complaints and stuff like that. And that's, it's all in the way we present this. I also worry a little bit that there are going to be some people who are going to use this as a sledgehammer against a neighbor that they don't like. But, that's a risk you run because the greater public health is important.
Well, and that's why it's a wobbler, right?
Yeah.
And we'd also see that upon review.
Yeah. I think it's a good idea to bring it back but we have to get it in place first, so that'll take a process.
Gary?
In anticipation of that, and maybe allowing the community to get out with you as the council on this, is there any merit, do you believe, in that once the draft ordinance is prepared, that we mail it to the local business owners and whoever other group we can think of? Because I know that if we do this in isolation, they're going to come in after the press has reported, look what they did, and they could be angry and they don't know what's taking place, and at least invite them to that
I think
your
that's
meeting.
a good idea.
You mean the government be proactive? That's what that's really what you're going.
Yeah.
That's out of the question.
Talk to the condo associations, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's important enough, particularly since we've done nothing since 1993.
Right.
I don't know that it's a large issue out there. I think most people, even the smokers, would probably say, well, I already abide by that, and whatnot. I think, again, we've moved as society to where, most of this is probably mainstream. But just the fact that, that's an accommodation as opposed to law makes somewhat of a difference.
It lets the 10% who still smoke know that we're thinking about saying.
Yeah, so we'll look at staff, we'll look at the drafting of the ordinance, and then, schedule it far enough in advance where we can mail out notices to owners and whatnot.
Good idea.
And you took care of my one comment about the private residences. The other was on the injunction, and the way it's worded or would be worded would be that it allows a private individual to bring an injunction. They still can report it to the police first if they so choose.
Correct, yeah.
It's only if that doesn't seem to solve the problem.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Well, with that, I like Gary's suggestion and Julie of getting this out to the impacted groups. And I think the largest impacted group that would be concerned is our downtown businesses. That's why
I think a lot of our condo associations are going to go ballistic.
Well,
some of them may have some real issues.
Yeah.
Well, then let's do that. Let's
That's
be
right.
proactive.
That's why we get it out there and also bring it back for review to see how well it's working.
I think that'd be a great idea, because that was my initial concern when I read about, I'm not a smoker either, but when I read that, we have hundreds actually of those units that share a wall.
We
And
do.
if you can't smoke anywhere within your unit, that could be very prohibitive.
They have to designate an area away from everybody.
And I don't know
And post it and signage and all of that. It's like, where are they going to do that? Around the swimming pool?
It's going to be a burden.
Yeah.
All right, do we
All
give
right.
direction?
Is that enough?
Yep.
Direction then?
Yep, thank you.
Thank
And
you.
we'll keep you informed of the likely process as to, hey, we're sending out the notice and so forth, so you can keep
Good.
tabs of what's going on. All right, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you again, staff. Mindy, excellent job researching it and then As I think I told you today, I was relieved when I got down to the bottom and saw that there was a solid recommendation after all the back and forth discussion. And I agreed with the recommendations now, particularly now that we've clarified how it would be applied, and we're going to work with the community on the actual application. So, sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that takes care of that action item. Moving on then to council items. Any new items?
Go ahead, Julie.
I just wanted to let staff know, I got yet another email from the chair of the Citizens Advisory Committee at the Transportation Authority. Clayton has been absent a designated representative for, I think, ever since Greg Manning left.
For which?
So for the Transportation Authority, the Citizens Advisory Committee, so we need to post for that and see if we can find somebody that we will be.
Do we have that up?
I believe we do. Okay.
Yeah, that's
It's a tough one to fill.
We've got a number of those. The County Library Commission now is
I know.
vacant, and
I know.
And we have CBCA has difficulty getting volunteers out.
Oh, I know.
I can address that in the mayor's column as
Yeah,
well.
that might be a helpful thing, that we've got a
Yeah,
couple of positions
I think that's a good
Opportunities for
idea.
volunteers.
I think I think I've seen actually some county board of supervisors, when they do their newsletters, they list what volunteer opportunities
Exactly.
are available. The unfortunate thing is the following month they list the same ones too, so they're struggling along with a lot of other people to have others who have some time to devote to civic responsibilities.
And somebody that would be willing to appoint,
That's
that will
true, too.
follow through.
Done? Okay.
I've talked with Gary on this, and I think tentatively I'd like to put on the agenda item for the next meeting a discussion about partnership with Clayton Valley Little League for our CCP fields. We've run into more roadblocks with the potential other areas of use. Little League has. The charter high school is actually had 60 girls participating in softball. And so they're having a freshman, a JV, and a varsity. And so they've actually now taken over another field that was Little League's. And so Little League is really hampered with fields. Mm-hmm. And our other avenue for a new home kind of appears to be falling through. And so there are things that Little League needs to have, like storage and some access and batting cage potentially. And I would like to just have a placeholder on there. I'll work with Gary and staff and kind of trying to see whether it's ready to come to council or not. But I think that's something that it may be a policy decision that, we're going to kind of partner with Little League, and that'll open up some opportunities for Little League to throw money at the fields more than we do potentially. So I just want to kind of keep that placeholder there. I'll talk with Gary, and if it's ripe for next time, great. Otherwise, if we have to kick it over, we can. But unfortunately, Little League is in a bind.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Do you? All right, then. We have no closed session, so we are adjourned to our next meeting on March 6th. Thank you, everyone.